Hello, good morning, and welcome to our third lesson on the course Microsoft Excel for beginners. We have gone through the first lesson, which was a layout of Microsoft Excel, the second lesson, which was on data entry, and now we are moving on to the third lesson, which is performing calculations on Microsoft Excel. For us to be able to successfully carry out our lesson of today, I'm just going to update this sheet by changing this score, by adding one more subject. This was their score in mathematics, so I'm going to add one more column for score, two more columns for scores in either physics and chemistry or geography and say English, for instance. Just give me 1 minute to go ahead and update. Yeah, but before updating the sheet, I would like us to try to make some few adjustments on our sheets together. I actually want to make an adjustment to be able to write the name of those three subjects above here before their score comes below. So what am I going to do? I intend to use one more Excel function, which is the merge function. I will highlight all the cells in our working environment and move them one row down, then merge these two cells by aligning them and then clicking on cell merge here, right up here. And what this function does is that it takes two cells and combine them as one. Yes, I will do the same merging here, but for the cells which are under scores, I'm going to highlight first these three cells up here, merge them, and then I write scores. Yes, and below here, instead of having scores here, I will have maths. I'll have physics, and let's just put English. Yes, so now I can go ahead and complete the marks for the other subjects. Yeah, so I've finished inputting the scores for the other two subjects, physics and English. If you notice up here, the font type is Arial and font size 10, contrary, which is different from the Times New Roman font type here, and size of 12. So I want to equally change the font type for uniformity of our worksheet. How can I do that? I can do that by in two ways: by selecting everything and changing directly up here, and do that by using a function in Excel called the format painter, which is located in our home tab and clipboard group. What does this function do? It copies the characteristic of one data and apply it to another data. So we are just going to randomly select any cell with the characteristics that we want to apply to the other cell, which can be this cell, for instance, or multiple cells. It can be multiple cells. We'll click on our format painter to our mouse pointer. An icon for paint brush appears just beside the mouse pointer, which means that we have carried some paints, which is like carrying some paints characteristics and then painting all through. So we will go to the cells which we want to paint or apply those similar characteristics with our source cells, right click and then pull through, and automatically their characters, the characteristics, the font type and the font size is applied all across our worksheet. Essentially, we are going to be calculating the averages of the students in class, taking into consideration while considering the coefficients of various subjects, and we are also going to rank the students in class from the most performing student to the least student. So, but then we don't yet have the coefficients of the subjects. So just going to simplify. Uh, I'm just going to simplify issues by attributing some coefficients to this subject. Maths, I will give mathematics a coefficient of 4, physics 4, and English a coefficient of 2. And above here we have coefficient C, and I can call these scores, and I just attribute an X to it, so we have scores X. Yeah, so right here we are going to highlight still three cells, merge them, and refer to it as total score. Total score X times the, by taking the score per subject and multiplying it by the corresponding subject. So we will copy and then paste here. So total score, individual score times the coefficient. In Excel, in order to enter a formula, we need to start with an equal to. This, however, used to be very confusing for me, but then I decided to look at it in the form of an algebra, because really actually it is an algebra of the form maybe y equal to maybe some x plus z, or some x times z. So we will go ahead and calculate the total, which we refer to it as our score here, times the coefficient. You start with your equal to, then you move ahead and select, or you can type it, the identity. Select the identity of cell D3. You can manually type this, or you use your mouse to select it. D3 times word, the coefficient corresponding with math, corresponding to math, which is M2. Yes, and we press enter. Great, this gives us 48. And we do same for physics. We can still write the equal to and do the multiplication, or we simply copy what is here, or we simply drag across to apply what is here to the other cells. And when you do this, you can verify by double clicking to see that really it is the mark of physics times the coefficient of physics, which is still 4 here. You press enter, and this is the mark of English times the coefficient of English that is here. Yes, we have succeeded in calculating the total score for John, and it is now time for us to go ahead and do same for the other students. However, if we align this, if we select this and apply it all through for the other student, we are going to have zeros. This is simply because if we want to verify, for instance, for Clara, for Will, who is the last student, his total for maths, we will have his score in marks in math, multiply by a corresponding cell which is not the coefficient, which has a zero entry. So it's like 1 times 0, which will give us a 0, which will normally give us a 0. Yes, how can we correct this? How can we correct this? We correct it by going back to John's formula and making sure that we hold the coefficient constant, such a way that when we pull through, only the marks will change, the coefficient is not going to change. And how do we do that? We do that by inserting a dollar sign in front of cell M and row 2. Sorry, row 2. Yes, we insert a dollar sign in front of that, and then we also do same for physics. We hold the coefficient of physics constant, dollar sign, and same for the coefficient of English, putting a dollar sign. Great. When we finish this, nothing has changed for the totals corresponding to John, but if we now pull this down, we see that everything becomes good. We have the mark of will in math times the coefficient. In all the cells, the coefficient now has become constant. Mark of pen times the coefficient, so the coefficient does not change. When we use a dollar sign in front of a row and a column, in front of a row and a column, or in front of a row or a column, because we can have situation where we want just either the column or the row to stay constant while the other changes. So depending on the situation, I believe we are going to see this as we continue with our course. Next, we are going to calculate the sum total of all of the scores in all the subjects for each student. I'm just going to write sum total. Sum total, you can call this anything you want, maybe S. Yeah, we can call this S. Sum total will be the sum of the scores in all the 3 subjects. It brings us to a new function which is the addition function or the sum function. The sum function, you can do this manually. Yeah, you can actually do it manually by starting with your equal to, select total for maths plus the total for physics plus the total for English, and enter. So it's G3 plus H3 plus I3. Good. Another way of doing this is by using the sum function, which is we get equal to, you type sum. In English is SUM. In French, for those using French, Microsoft Excel is going to be SOMME. So immediately when we start typing, all the functions which integrates sum appears. We double click on the first, and then we select all the cells that we want to sum. We start selecting from here and here, and then we press enter. Good. Either way, the result is going to be the same. To have for the other student, we simply apply what we did up here. So if we double click here, you see it's the sum of this person if we double click here, we see that it is the sum of G17 plus H17 plus I17. Similarly, we can pull this down to apply, and everything is going to be the same. So now what is the difference? What is the difference between manually inputting maybe G1 plus H1 plus I1, and using the sum function. The sum function will help you greatly in case where you have large data to manage. Yes, when you have large data to manage. The plus function, manually entering with the plus function is time consuming, and you will need a lot of time in order for you to pull through if you're manually inputting your data. I will just go ahead and remove one of them, this last one, by highlighting and pressing the delete. So next we will also calculate the sum of all our coefficient, all the coefficient in the subject the student took for that semester by taking equal to, sorry, SU, not SO, SUM, double click and select all the 3 keys. So all the student took, the total coefficient for all the student was 10. This can be coefficient or credit, more or less. Coefficient, let's call it coefficient. To get the average of each student in all the 3 subjects, we are simply going to type equal to the sum total divided by the coefficient and enter, which is 11.2 for John. 11.2 for John. Again, if we pull this down, we will have errors. Yes, this error is as a result of the fact that in our average formula, we did not hold the sum of coefficient constant. We did not hold the sum of coefficient constant by using inserting the dollar sign. So now we've inserted the dollar sign to hold the sum coefficient constant, and then we apply through, and here we get the respective averages of the averages of the respective student on 20. So in essence, that is how basic calculations can be done in Excel. Yes, basic calculation can be done in Excel. So as a reminder, we use asterisk in Excel for multiplication. We use forward slash for division, and of course plus, minus. Also, all our formula entry must start with an equal to. Never forget that. All our formulas in Excel must start with an equal to. Building this kind of spreadsheet is very important for you professionally, because if perhaps one of the students come and complain to you after you've finished doing all this, and a student come and tell you that probably he or she had an issue with like Philip had an issue with his marks in math, you will not have to redo all this calculation all over. When you go to your Excel and change the mark of Philip to 12, for instance, it automatically causes changes across our spreadsheet, and not just on the mark that you have adjusted. So adjustment can be made without any fear. Whereas if, for instance, in the calculation of the sum, you were inputting 48 instead of putting the cell reference G3, if you inputted 48 plus 40 plus 27 for John, when you make any changes in John's physics or English or mathematics marks, it does not go across since you manually inputted the data. So that is why it is very important that when you're doing your calculation in Excel, you use the cell references or the cell identity to do all your calculations and not manually inputting the any calculation in Excel. At this point, it is important to reiterate the fact that though average, for instance, John's average, for instance, is showing 11.2, you might mistakenly think that 11.2 is the content of cell K3, yes, but that is not the case. The content of cell K3 is actually a formula. So behind what Excel is showing you is the formula, and that formula is actually what is the content of cell K3. And that is why when you select cell K3, what applies, what appears in the function space above is the formula and not that number. Yes, so essentially when we click on to see the contents of cell K3, we see a formula which is what we've asked Excel to do. So far we've been using the autofill handle to fill the rest of the cell and inputting formula. Another way of using the autofill function is by selecting the cell, moving to the bottom right corner, and then when you get the autofill arrow, you double click. Excel automatically understands that you want to autofill for the rest of the cell, and it does the autofill. So you get the autofill function by moving to the bottom right corner of the cell in which you've already inputted a complete formula, and then you double click. This will greatly help you in situation where you have like 1000 data. It will be impossible for you to click hold and keep on dragging. It's possible, but while working in Excel, we want to use as limited time as possible. Next, we want to sort our student from the lowest to the highest, or from so we want to sort our student from the highest to the lowest, or from the lowest to the highest, and we can do this by using the sort function, which is a small filter right up here. We click down, and here the first option is sort from A to Z, that's from the lowest to the highest, or we sort, the second is from Z to A, which is highest to lowest. If we just select this, for instance, I want us to look at the average of John here is 12, and that of Claire, for instance, is 15.2. If we just take sort from Z to A, the sorting has been done, yes, but it's with a reference to the first column, which is by considering the letters of the name, Y being the highest and A being the lowest. But this is not what we wanted to do. We wanted to sort with reference to the average. So Excel gives us an option here called the custom sort. Yes, the custom sort, and the custom sort will ask you question like what do you want to do, sort by. You define the column, which is column K. Yes, we define column K. Cell value, do you want to sort with respect to cell value or respect to cell color, font type or font size, or conditional formatting? We will see conditional formatting in our as we are going to see conditional formatting as we continue in our master class. So we want to sort by cell value. And how do you want to sort? From the largest? Yes, of course we want we want the largest to come first, and then you take. Okay, great. Now the first person is now. Great, we've performed our sorts. Surprisingly, I notice now is having an average of 20.2 on 20. That's strange. That means we had an error somewhere in inputting our data. So I need to check that. And I discovered in physics, all the marks were supposed to be on 20, but in physics we gave now 25. So instead of 15. Great. So when you change the mark of now, you notice now's position in the sorting will equally change. Now has 16. When you change now's position, when you change now's mark from 15 from 20, when we change now's mark from 25 to 15, and we do our sorting, we do perform the sorting all over again, we discover that now's position now has moved from first to third. Great. To third. That is the sort function. Next, we are going to look at the ranking or rank function. More or less, when you've done sorting, you can just attribute numbers to. However, since we sorted from largest to smallest, ranking is still going to put them in the same order. So I would like that we reverse the order of our sorting by sorting from the smallest to the largest. This is a good class actually. Everybody had an average of 11 of 10 and above 10. Yeah, that was great. So next we are going to look at the rank function. So we are done with sorting. Next we want to rank our students in class 1 to find out the ranking of our student. We could still do this ranking without necessarily doing the sorting, of course. So to rank, we are using the rank function, and as is the case in Excel, for every function we start with an equal to, then we write our rank. We double click on rank. The first says a number. What do we want to rank? We want to rank the average, so we select the number, a comma, and next it says the reference. The reference, which is the reference here, and next it says the reference. The reference is simply all the data, the range, all the data that we want to conduct the ranking with. Equally here, we want to keep this reference constant by adding our $sign in front of all the rows and the column, and we do this by simply putting the $sign manually, or we press, if we press the function, the F4 function, the F4 key, yes, and we press enter. So notice the position of wheel is 15, and we can auto fill to C. Great. All our first student here, the student who has the first position is Yusuf. So if we double click on Yusef ranking, we see that the number is Yusef's average, and the reference is the same. The reference is the same as it is for Will, because we used the dollar sign. Next, I want to share with you guys another function in Excel. I want to share with you another function in Excel. So let me go ahead and insert a column here. It changes nothing. Great. I want to share another function, which is naming of a cell or naming of a range. We can either name a cell or we can name a range. For instance, if I want to name this cell, the cell G4, I simply click on G4, and then down here on the name I can call it BN. Yes, and without giving any space, I press enter. Good. I could come and maybe say equal to, instead of writing or going to select our cell G4, I write BN. Yes, Excel, remember I gave the name BN to a cell, and I say plus, I maybe give an additional plus 1 to it and press enter, and the result is 49. Great, and the result is 49. So how can we apply this in Excel? We can apply this by selecting a range of cell, for instance this, and calling giving it a name, perhaps let's say mat, and then without giving any space we press enter. Already we had named that as K, so it is still K that comes up, which is cool. Yes, we've called it a BN, we've called it mat. Cool. If I come to this cell, and instead of whenever you forget the name of you gave to your range, you can come here and click, you will get to see the name of the ranges here. If I double click on mat, I see all the range that I named mat. You can perform a single calculations like equal to mat plus 1, which you get 2 corresponding for this, and you can actually drag through to get the rest of the result. Well, we're going to see more applications of this naming of cells and naming of range as we go through this course. So far we have seen the use of formulas, and also seen the use of some a few functions. Some people usually confuse formulas in Excel with functions. Formulas sometimes does the same thing as functions, like we earlier saw functions like average. You can use functions like average, like sum. We've used sum here, but then we are going to look at functions in detail in our next tutorial. Thank you for going through this lesson 3. You did learn some things from this short and lengthy lessons. If you have any question, you can always write below the comment box, and I will respond to it or help you find the answer to the question. Thank you.